everyone. Welcome to Crime in Court. This is the 1996 Menendez brothers trial. We're reading through the transcripts here, and we are in the middle of Dr. McCarthy's testimony. He is testifying for the state, and he is the mechanical engineer who is testifying to some diagrams that he created, and we're kind of going through his testimony here and seeing what he's got to say. We are in the middle of cross examination, sorry, with Ms. Abramson asking the questions for Erik. So, with that being said, please hit the like button and let's get started. We're just going to not jump right into where we left off, which is their afternoon break on November 14th, 1995. And we're coming back from break. The court says everybody is present. We will have the jury out, please. The jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings were held. Court says, all right, the jury is back. You may continue your cross-examination. And Ms. Abramson says, thank you, Your Honor. And she asks, now, Dr. McCarthy, the exhibits that we have here, these illustrations, now contain the scaled furniture based on the measurements made by the Beverly Hills Police Department. Is that right? Close. All the dimensions that Beverly Hills measured are on this furniture, but they didn't measure every dimension. What? All the dimensions that Beverly Hills measured are on the furniture, but they didn't measure every dimension. Okay. So the next question is, they measured. Let me show you what was marked yesterday as exhibit. You weren't here yesterday, correct? That's correct. Okay. What was marked exhibit 276? Yes. And does 276 appear to be a schematic diagram of the crime scene, that room which you are using in all of your illustrations? Yes. And do you see that some numbers appear on that indicating the size of some parts of the furniture? Yes. And are those the numbers that you used? Yes. You're shaking. Shaking does nothing for this lady. I'm sorry. Hold on. There was a table that I also used in the police report. There was a typed list of furniture dimensions. Yes. Yes? Okay. I can represent to you that the person who did that, Mr. Kuhn, was here yesterday, and he took from the list these dimensions and put them on this chart. That's fine. Okay. Okay. So that's what we are talking about. So what is supposed to be shown here by way of scale is, for example, why don't you look that over? The octagonal table, for example, that's in the southwest corner of the room is 48 inches in diameter. Yeah, it's always been 48. And the coffee table now reflects 56 by 22. 56 by 22 by 17.5 high. Correct. And the couch that you represented, is the main section of that couch supposed to be 90 inches, as Mr. Kuhn indicates? Assuming there is no disagreement, these are all the values off the table, yes? Those are the values off the table, and that the couch depth is 30 inches? 36, it looks like to me. Well, it might be 36. We will take a look at the chart to make sure, and that the height is 28 inches? Yeah. Okay. Are these your dummy rounds? Yes. Okay. You were asked to bring down and sheriff security take through sheriff security some live rounds of the ammunition that you used for these test firings, correct? Yes. And have you assured me that those will be here tomorrow? Yes. Now, just to be clear, the ammunition that you used to do the test firings was all number 4 buckshot? Yes. And you purchased that directly from the Fiat of America Distribution Company, or did you get it at a gun store or someplace like that? I may have ordered it from an ammo wholesaler. I bought a sealed case, though. And that was ordered this year, 1995? Yes, or perhaps November or December of last year. I mean, within the last 12 months. So 94 to 95. Yes. And before you ordered that ammunition, had you looked at the ballistic evidence that was gathered from the scene here and from the coroner's office? No, I think I just ordered the ammunition based on the testimony I read. So he didn't even verify that it was the correct ammo. So that's interesting. And the testimony you read indicated that it was a Fiachi, number 4. Yes. And the testimony you also that you read also indicated that the birdshot rounds were also Fiachi, correct? I just don't have an independent recollection. Whatever it is, it is. Again, with these answers, like, that's really bad because that discredits him every time he says, whatever it is, it is. Like, well, you don't know or you don't have an opinion on it. Like, you're just gonna, I don't know. It looks really bad to me. Leslie asks, you didn't get any birdshot to do any testing with that? That is correct. So he only tested the buckshot. He didn't test any birdshot. So what was the point? Why did you even do it? If you're not gonna, recreate many of the elements. And he only did a couple shots each, which is not really a very good selection. When you do testing, you want a good selection so that you know you're getting a consistent result. Because all of his results were different. So it would have been nice to have more of a consistency and then you can have an average come out of that, like more shootings and then find your average. Anyways, so he says, you didn't get any or she asks, you didn't get any birdshot. He says, that's correct. Now, you have identified based on, well, let me ask you. You have given a size for the birdshot round. I believe you said it was 8.5. Is that right? Yes. And that's based on what? On just miking up the little bird shots. You're going to have to explain in English what miking up means. Just putting a micrometer on the lead bullet or lead pellets that were represented to me to be discovered from the scene. Putting a micrometer on the lead pellets. So I put a micrometer on a couple of them and they came out to 8.5 millimeters or micrometers, sorry. Now, you did that to actual evidence collected and booked in here in court. Yes. And is it your testimony that there is such a thing marked as 8.5 size birdshot? Oh, yes, there is. In fact, Dr. McCarthy, there is no 8.5 birdshot. There is only 7, 7.5, 8, and 9. You will see it listed in textbooks. All right. Have you ever seen it in a gun store? I have never looked. Have you ever seen it in a catalog? Again, I have never looked. Let me show you something. This is evidence number 67 in evidence, and I ask you first, can you see that is a round of Fiachi birdshot? The cartridge casing says Fiachi dove load, yes. And it's dove load size 8, correct? Yes. And do you notice the shot cup, the plastic shot cup inside? Yes. And do you know whether or not that shot cup is identical to the shot cup recovered at the scene and the shot cup recovered at the coroner's office in this case? It looks different from my recollection, but I would have to let the recovered shot cup, I'd have to look at I'd have to have, you'd probably look at it, the recovered shot cup again to be sure. All right, let me get it for you. Are you familiar with the label that the Beverly Hills Police Department gave you to certain items of evidence at the scene? No, I have always had Detective Zoller wherever I needed anything. Well, let me show you a chart, number 24 in evidence. You're going to knock it over. I know you are. If you don't, I will. Mr. Levin says, let me do it. Ms. Abramson says, it's too big. Okay, thank you. Struggling with the exhibit. And she says, this is Exhibit 24, and are you aware of the fact that a shot cup previously testified to as holding birdshot was found where This number 11 appears. I know at least one was found, but I would have to go back to the police report to verify. I don't have an independent recollection of your location. Okay. You did get police reports as part of the information that was supplied to you to prepare you to do the work on this case, correct? Yes. And part of the police records that you had included a record showing each item of property collected from the scene and its location, correct? Yes. Let me show you what's been marked 48C. First of all, is that a plastic shot cup? Yes. And if you would look at the design and configuration, strike that. There are many different looking ones on these different looking shot cups on the market. Are there not? There is. And some of them have straight sides and some of them have sort of champagne glass sides. Mm-hmm. And some of them have the bottom part, which I think you have called the power piston, has different configurations, correct? Yes. But the two you are holding right now are identical, aren't they? No, I don't think so. Here is why. You don't? You see, this has got this stiffening rib added vertically, okay? If you look around this on all the angles, I don't think there is any stiffening. You don't think that's a stiffening? No, but I have no idea what a stiffening is or any of this language. They should explain it for the jury so we all laymen can understand. He says, no, but see between this and the bottom of the cup, you see how there are those four gussets that have been added. Again, with big words that we don't know, stiffening gussets have been added. I don't think you will see those gussets. I would have to take it out to be sure, but I don't think they're there. Is the configuration of the power piston the same? Excuse me? Do you want me to take it out? Not if it's going to be a federal operation. It's a state court. Is it difficult to do? No. I mean, there's a taped slit here. Well, let the clerk open it. Can we open this one too? Yes. Okay, we have cut the large envelopes on 48C, and do you see the smaller envelope says item 11 on it, correct? Yes. Let me very carefully cut that above the number. Is it above the staple? No, you have to cut below that. It's heat sealed. Miss Abramson says, Your Honor, can I cut this way? And she indicates how she wants to do it. The court says, Do you need it actually in your hand to see and compare the two? Miss Abramson says, Can you see it better now that it's out of the plastic? Yes. All right. Now, let me ask you one question. This item that you're holding in your hand that says number 11 is obviously something that's been fired, is it not? But you can see, he doesn't even answer the question, but you can now see it pretty definitively. You see those four gussets that support the base of the cup. They are absent from this piece. In all other respects, is it identical? I can't check the dimensions, but there is no other obvious physical detail differences that I readily detect. Now, were you given the testimony from the first trial of LA County Sheriff's ballistics expert Dwight Van Horn? Yes. And do you remember Detective Deputy Van Horn comparing these two items of evidence when he testified? No, I don't. And were you ever given the report of the sheriff's criminalist named James Roberts? He gives no audible response. Do you mind if I move this because I'm not going to ask you to use this today? He says, Fine, you can shut it off. The off switch is in the back. Thank you. The name does not ring a bell. Do you know, in fact, that there was a ballistics expert at the sheriff's department named James Roberts who examined the ammunition in this case, the expended ballistics evidence? I don't recollect. I didn't read any testimony from him. Well, whose testimony? What criminalist's testimony did you read what were you referring to when you answered Mr. Gessler's question about having read the testimony of criminalists? Mr. Van Horn was not a criminalist. I guess it's not a term I used. If I mislabel people, I apologize. So are you referring solely to Deputy Van Horn and the report from the sheriff? And again, I don't know if the Lawrence report, I guess. So, no, sir. Linhart? Linhart, yeah. So let's separate these out. You read the testimony of a sheriff deputy named Dwight Van Horn. Correct. And do you recall he qualified as a ballistics expert? Objection calls for hearsay. Ms. Abramson says, just trying to identify him, Your Honor. Court says, overruled. You can answer the question. The witness says he qualified in having expertise in that, certainly. It was my recollection. Okay. And you said that you had read a report from a sheriff's criminalist named Linhart. Is that right? If I'm using that term correctly, you are. He's a criminalist. Okay. And do you recall whether or not Mr. Linhart testified? Well, whether or not you got any testimony. I did not get any testimony if he testified. Well, let's talk for a moment about what you did get and didn't get to prepare you. Were certain materials sent to you by the district attorney? Yes. And how long ago was it that you received materials from the district attorney? Oh, close to a year ago. I just don't have a precise recollection. And do you recall what the first materials were that you received? Transcripts of testimony. And whose testimony did you receive transcripts of? A Mr. or Dr. Irwin Golden. And what testimony of Dr. Golden's, meaning in what proceedings? It's pages 9129 to 9254. Does that identify it? Yes, that's trial transcript. Okay. And did you also receive some pages from his testimony before the county grand jury? Yes, pages 98 to 104. So you're reading from a list now, is that correct? Yes, that's all right. That's to refresh your recollection about what materials were submitted to you with 5-digit page numbers. So we're up beyond 5 at this point. Okay. Now, this is the first page you received where these transcripts of Dr. Golden's testimony. They were. My collection is, I received a large packet of testimony of which his was just part. And what other testimony then? We'll stick to that for the moment. Did you get? Mr. Van Horn's. So that's Deputy Van Horn. Yes, I accept your representation. Any other testimony? I'm trying to put this packet together. I'm sorry. I'm sorry? What else was in his first package of testimony, or the first package of testimony that you received? Testimony of Detective Zoller. And was that testimony of Detective Zoller having to do with his witnesses or having to do with the scene? Pages 7327 to 7402. It, for the most part, dealt with the scene, but there was some discussion of witnesses, too. Okay. What else? What other testimony? Oh, what witnesses do you remember? In his testimony? Yes. Basically, the two sons. Okay. Our clients? Yes. So Erik and Lyle Menendez. All right. And what else? Then I got testimony from a Mr. Richard Catalini. And did you understand Mr. Catalini to be a criminalist with the sheriff's department whose area was serology? That comports with my recollection. Okay, what else? There's a lot here that he didn't mention. He was just like, yeah, I got some testimony. Whatevs. Whatevs. It's no big deal. I read through some stuff. It's like, no, dude, we need to know what you actually are using. The jury needs to know what you're using to decide things. He says, I've got a transcript of tapes of a meeting with Mr. Burt and Mr. Gillingham and Dr. Golden, right? I just have it identified in that manner, and I don't have a specific recollection. Do you remember testifying on October 2nd and 3rd that that transcript was of a meeting between Mr. Burt, Mr. Gillingham, and Dr. Golden? A month ago, I may have said that. I just don't have a specific recollection as I sit here. Do you know who Mr. Burt and Mr. Gillingham are or were? I thought they were defense attorneys. Defense attorneys in this case at that time, correct? That is my understanding. And do you know what the date of the meeting was that was transcribed? June 10th, 1990. So this is clearly before the first trial even occurred. This is part of the investigation. And what other, now that's not testimonial, but what other transcripts did you receive? Then transcripts of Erik and Lyle. And what transcripts of a portion of their testimony from the first trial? That is my understanding, yes. And how many volumes of such transcripts did you receive of the Menendez sons' testimony? I can give you the page numbers. I don't know how that breaks into your convention of volumes. Now, how big a pile? Let me ask you that. About 3.5, 4 inches? 3-ish. So 3 inches. Yeah, ballpark. Were you aware that in the first trial, Erik Menendez testified for 10 days and Lyle Menendez testified for 9 days? Objection, irrelevant, assumes facts not in evidence, overruled. The witness says, I couldn't have told you the number of days they testified. Ms. Aronson says, but you certainly didn't receive 19 days worth of testimony, did you? I don't think so. Okay, and was there any other testimony that you received as part of the large package from the prosecution? Not initially, I don't think so. That was it. Okay, and what was the initial submission? Was that the initial submission to you? Yes. Now, on or about the same time, I received the autopsy reports and 25 rolls of photographs, and it could have been in the same shipment or right around the same time, just don't have a specific recollection. So when you say you received the autopsy reports, you mean one report each from Mary Louise Menendez and one report for Jose Menendez. Yeah, Jose Menendez, yes. Or he said Joseph. Yes. And she says it's Jose. He says, okay, the autopsy had both names on it. And did you receive at that time, within the last year, the 1992 amendment to the report for Mary Louise Menendez? I have received amendments in the last year, yes, but more than one. Well, you're aware that there are recent amendments on September 25th, 1990 to both the Mr. Menendez report and the Mrs. Menendez report. Yes. But my question specifically was whether you received in that first package the 1992 amendment. I don't think so. Do you know when the date of the first trial was? My recollection is 1992, but I don't have a specific recollection, no. Do you know if the 1992 amendment that you received, that's Dr. Golden's amendment, correct? Yes. Do you know if that was before the first trial or after? I do not. So the transcripts that you received containing testimony had no dates on them. They did. I just didn't bring them down. I don't recollect them off the top of my head. And since you don't take notes, you don't have any notes to look to. Is that correct? That is correct. All right. Now, you said you received 24 rolls of film. 25 rolls, 1 through 25. And that was negatives, correct? Yes. And you received those from whom? The district attorney's office. And that was at or close to the time when you received the package of the transcripts, correct? That is my recollection. And was anything you took those 25 rolls of film and scanned them into the computer, is that right? Photo CDs. So you put them onto photo CDs, correct? So that you could see them on a computer, see them and store them there and carry them around. Yes, much more convenient. And those 25 rolls of film wound up occupying 6 separate CDs, correct? Approximately, yes. And what else, if anything, did you receive, Dr. McCarthy, before you wrote the report on July 13th, 1995? From the DA's office? From anybody? Well, of course, got a survey of the room. Fine, let's talk about that. You said that you sent engineers out? Yes. Who was that? In December of 1994, before I wrote the report, I sent the director of my Los Angeles office, Dr. Robert Cadlack. How do you spell his name for me and the reporter? Cadlac. And he was assisted by Edward Bears, senior engineer in the office. And you found it was necessary to send a PhD and a senior engineer to measure a room. Well, there's necessary and necessary. I mean, nevertheless, that's who you sent, correct? That's who I sent. And were you made aware by anyone, either the prosecutors or Detective Zoller or your engineers, that that room had been modified since the time of the offense by the time that they went there in December of 94? Great question. I was either informed by Dr. Cadlack or deduced from the drawings that there had been some modifications. And to the best of your knowledge, based on the drawings that they prepared, what were those modifications? Some of the built in bookcases had been removed, and there had been some modifications on the north end of the room to the TV viewing area. So you say some of the bookcases had been removed. Don't you mean all of them? All the built in cases, yes. Were there any others in the room? As I sit here, I don't recollect any others, but that's all I was referring to. And when you talk about the built in bookcases, are you talking about bookcases that lined the east wall of the room? Yes. So that's your understanding that there were bookcases across the east wall. The east wall. And on the exhibit 24 that we're looking at right now, the east wall is the right hand wall as we're facing that exhibit, correct? Yes. It's the wall in front of which items 16, 17, 18 were found. Yes. And it's your understanding that there was a modification to the TV area, that alcove was modified. Yes. Now are you aware, that the exhibit was prepared by Decision Quest? Objection, irrelevant, overruled. The witness says yes. And Decision Quest is the company for whom your good friend Don Vincent works, correct? Objection, calls for speculation, overruled. How's that speculation? It's my understanding he's the chairman. And did you give any of your measurements to Mr. Vincent or his company? We could very well have. I didn't personally, but we could have transmitted our dimensions. Do you know if he based the chart work that Decision Quest has done for the prosecution in this case on any of the work that your people did? Objection, calls for hearsay and speculation. Sustained. Now that would be speculation unless he has knowledge of it. Was it your understanding, or did you agree that your work, FAA's work, would be that failure analysis work would be used by Decision Quest for chart production? Objection, irrelevant, overruled. It was my understanding they were going to produce these charts to see down here. I don't have any recollection of discussing this chart, but over a year we might have, and I just don't recollect it. When you say the charts down here, all the exhibits that show illustrations were in fact prepared by Decision Quest, were they not? Objection, calls for speculation, no personal knowledge or foundation. Overruled. That is my understanding. They have Decision Quest labels on the back. Yeah, you didn't make them. Uh, they made them. Yes. This is a photograph I just wanted to show you to make sure we're talking about the same thing. This is Exhibit 22. That shows the bookcase on the east wall, correct? Yes. And your people informed you that they were gone when they got there to measure the room. There was no indication of bookcases, and they photographed and showed that they weren't there. So they photographed the room when they went to measure it. Yes. Do you have those photographs? Surely. Oh, I'd like to see them, Your Honor. Would you like to see them? Have you shown these to the prosecution? Yeah, I presume they were Xerox copies when we copied the court. So Xerox copies for the prosecution. For everybody. Well, you presumed wrong. I'm sorry. Why don't we lay the book flat because the glare? So obviously she didn't get these photos. So she asks him, why don't we lay the book flat because of the glare? So these images must be in a book, I guess. He like a photo album or something. He says, I'm sorry. She says, don't lose those. I shan't. Okay. It's a weird answer. I shan't. Okay. Now, you then sent Dr. Cadillac and Edward Beers, and they made certain measurements of the room. And you had those measurements as of when? As of when? Yes. On December 1994, you want the precise date? No, that's fine. The question was, did you receive anything else before you prepared your report on July 13th, 1995? So he got them in December, and yeah. Before I prepared that report, I also got the exemplar weapon from Mossberg. Okay, anything else? No. You contacted Mossberg yourself and asked them to send a gun with a lower serial number than the ones purchased in this case. Yes, I contacted Miss Georgia Nichols, the general counsel, myself, and she sent you a gun. Yes, she caused to have sent me a gun. What? That was a really weird way to say that. She caused to have sent me a gun. This guy know English? I don't know. And the gun that you received, did it have a wooden dowel in the magazine section? No. And were you aware that shotguns sold in the state of California are required to have that wooden dowel in it? Sold for retail. Is that right? Were you aware of that? I guess I don't have an awareness they have to be sold that way. Do you have an awareness that if they're used for hunting, they have to have a dowel in it? Yes. And that the most that could be loaded in such a gun if it's being used for hunting is 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine. Total of 3, yes. But you aren't aware of whether or not they're sold with the dowel in the gun stores. As a requirement by California law? No, I'm not. You are a California resident? Yes. And in fact, did you determine after you came here to testify in the trial, or were you told that the mechanism which opens up the gun in such a way as to have the dowel come out was jammed and wasn't working? I was told it was very stiff. A deputy told me that he got it to open. And did you find it was extremely stiff on this gun? Yes, there was dirt in the threads. And have you since oiled and lubricated the gun? To a certain degree, but it's still very stiff. I'll put some lapping paste on it and it will work nice. So you'll try to make it work the way it's supposed to. It works the way it's supposed to now, but I'll make it work really nice. So how many other Mossberg's 500s of that series do you own? I think I have one, maybe two model 500s. That's what I mean by that series. So Model 500 is a particular style. This particular one has an 18.5-inch barrel length. Yes. And that's not stock. You can vary on a Model 500. Is it your understanding you can buy Model 500s with different barrel lengths? My understanding, right. And can you buy Model 500s with different kinds of stocks? Oh, yes. And what other features are variable as far as you know on Model 500s? I had a Mossberg catalog last year. Do you know offhand? Not good enough to testify from memory. All right. Do you know any comparison between the other Mossberg that you own and this one to see if it operates the same, if the pump slides the same way, if the trigger pulls in similar, those types of things? Yes. By the way, did you make an effort to do any ejection pattern tests with the gun that you bought that's now an exhibit? I just don't remember the number offhand. No. You mean by that you mean shell casing ejections? No. Yes, that's what ejects shell casings. Well, understood, but for the clarification of everybody involved, that's what So you didn't do any of those tests. She just shuts him down. She's like, okay, we don't need your mansplaining, buddy boy. That's not what I asked you. So you don't do any of those tests. That's correct. Did you ever do any ejection tests on the 500 that the maybe one or two that you own? No. Did you ever do any test firings in order to try to determine the distribution pattern of the ammunition in a particular gun before? Yes, I have shot for pattern in the past. And what kind of gun and what kind of ammunition have you shot for pattern in the past? A 12 gauge mostly. So 12 gauge mostly what? Mostly for distribution pattern. I've shot 410 as well. I don't know how you say these things. Mostly 12 gauge and on glass and wood. And was that to determine impact patterns on glass and wood? And to look at the effect of the pattern because of the angle of the weapon relative to the surface? And what kind of gun were you or guns were you using for those tests? Various shotguns that I've had, a Remington 870, a couple other Remingtons. What kind of, I'm sorry, a couple other Remingtons. Then I have a number of combat shotguns that I have shot for pattern, a USAS, and it's a Franchi, I have no idea, Franchi 12. So what kind of ammunition did you fire in these test firings for distribution patterns? Mostly double and triple aught. He's not explaining any of these terms. He's just throwing out like these big terms. I have no idea what they mean. So double and triple aught are larger individual pellets than number 4 buck. Yes. And were you able, in those experiments, to determine distribution patterns for certain guns and certain ammunitions? As a function of distance, or certainly we can always determine the pattern you get, but so you can determine the pattern you get from one shot? Right. Uh, so what? I mean, didn't you not do a couple shots and they all varied on your tests for this case alone? So how can you say one shot pattern is enough to determine it? Were you able to see if you got consistent patterns for any purpose, whether it's distance or patterning? You can see if you can get consistent patterns, yes. And I have shot these weapons in no small part for consistency. But continue on. I don't understand the question. Was there some reason, or is there some reason you can attribute to why you were not able to get consistent patterns when you did your test firings here? I guess I wouldn't term the patterns inconsistent. It's just that they are not dimensionally consistent enough to permit use for distance reconstruction in a defensible manner. What? So you can't defend any of the patterns. I didn't see any other test firings. What I'm going to say defensible distance grouping, although I wasn't attempting to do that at the time. Okay, whatever. I have no idea what he means by that. So before you wrote your report on July the 13th of 1985, had you already done these test firings? The court says 1995. Ms. Abramson says 95. I'm sorry, did I say something stupid? The witness says, my recollection is yes, yes. Ms. Abramson says, and before you wrote your report on July 13th, 1995, had you looked at, by the way, you see that envelope in front of you, the large yellow envelope beyond the computer? Yes. My side of the computer. You see that? Yes. Had you looked through that before July 13th, 1995? Oh, yes. I mean, I had looked at the evidence. I can't vouch for that envelope. Well, if I tell you that envelope, that large envelope, which is numbered, I believe 48, contains all the evidence seized from the scene. Oh, then I have, yes. And this envelope, which has two green labels, Exhibit 81, contains all the ballistics evidence from the coroner's office. Did you look at that one too? I think so, yes. And you looked at both of those before your report of July 13th, 1995? Yes. And do you recall seeing two items of ballistics evidence that existed after the shot cup and power piston combination and wadding? So, a shot cup and power piston, such as what's contained in what you were looking at a little while ago, number 61 and number 48C, this little plastic. Yes, I saw those. I saw that. And did you see in all of the evidence that was seized both from the coroner's office and this scene only two of these? Yes, only two of these cups, right. So only two of the cups. And did you see another kind of wadding and packaging from the evidence of the scene and the evidence at the coroner's office? Yes. And was that type of packaging indicative of a shell that was packed with paper wadding and a plastic disc like wadding rather than a cup? A disc power piston, yes, what I've been calling power piston. So this I'm going to just say right now this is all very confusing and they're lost in the weeds about the pieces of these things. I know she's trying to somehow impeach him on what he recollects or something, like that's what I'm thinking, or that he didn't get to review certain evidence, perhaps. Maybe he's missing something here. So she's trying to get to something, and I'm just really lost in the weeds right now because all these terms that I don't understand, these ballistics terms, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's people on the jury that are feeling this as well. But let's continue on. So, just a flat plastic disc, correct? A little more than that. If you look, it's one of those flat plastic discs that swells because of the pressure on the seals. Well, why don't we just draw it? I have already drawn it. Why don't I draw it and you can sit and relax? As compared to this shot cup, the other kind of plastic thing that you saw was shaped more or less like this. And she draws it. He says, not bad, yes. And you saw a few of those, correct? Yes. And you also saw, and I'm going to mark that, the first thing I drew B and the other thing A. You also saw paper wadding more or less in the shape of that rectangle. Yes. And it's circular, and so is B. Yes. The paper wadding is like compressed fibrous paper. Yes. And you saw pieces of it as if it had been sliced horizontally or was punched out of a plate of a different thickness. What? So you also saw pieces thicker and thinner as if slicing off pieces of cake. Or were they stamped out of different thickness stock? Yes. So you're not sure which it was. That's right. Are you familiar with the fact that in 1989 some buckshot ammunition was packed solely with type A and type B? Yes. And no cups at all. That is correct. No cups at all. And the ammunition that you bought a case of 200 rounds of, number 4 from Fiachi, that ammunition does have a cup inside of it. Yes, it's a more advanced design. So here we go. We get to the big reveal that took us a while to get there, but he used ammo that has a cup. The ammo that was used at the scene, which was produced and manufactured and sold years ago before before the stuff that he bought, didn't have a cup in it. It just has the wadding. So it's different ammo. So obviously, the difference between the cup and the wadding could make a huge difference on how things are projected out of that casing. So you're testing apples to oranges. It's not the same thing, is what she's bringing out there, and we finally got to it. So her next question is, so is your understanding that in 1989 Fiachi ammunition, well, strike that, based on looking at the ballistics evidence here, did it appear that the buckshot ammunition was packed with paper wad and a plastic disc-like wad? Yes. And was it your understanding that the birdshot ammunition, the two rounds were packed with a shot cup? Yes. But all the ammunition that you were test firing was packed in a shot cup? Correct. And do you think maybe, Dr. McCarthy, the fact that you were shooting ammunition packed in a shot cup might have produced a result that would have been usable in comparing two shot patterns created by ammunition packed with just paper wads and plastic disc wads. It's a beautifully worded question. He says, "Oh, I don't think it would have been usable, but had it worked out, then I could have gone ahead and acquired the appropriate ammunition for the tests. But if the more advanced shot cup ammunition didn't produce consistent groupings, then using the older designed ammunition was less likely to produce a consistent group than the shot cup." Well, you don't know that. You're guessing. No, I'm not guessing. Mr. Khan says, may the witness finish his answer. The witness says, the shot cup is a more advanced design and it's a better design. The cup protects the shot better, and so a shot cup shotgun gun round produces a more consistent pattern and a tighter pattern too. If you want to see it, look at the Winchester I shot next to it, which is of the older filled powdered plastic round with the pellets design, and those groupings are not as tight. Ms. Abramson says, no, they're not as tight, but they're most likely to be similar to a similarly packed set of number 4 buckshot that was used in this case, aren't they? I'm not comfortable agreeing with you because there's no evidence that granular fill was used in the Winchester, was in fact present in the shot at the scene. There's no evidence of granular fill anywhere in that scene. Who said anything about granular fill? Like, he's just coming up with whatever. Let me ask you this, Dr. McCarthy. You are now testifying as if you knew all along that what you bought was the wrong packed ammunition. Is that what you're saying? No. I ordered the ammunition based on the testimony of the deputy, and then when I finally got to inspect the evidence at the scene, I could see this ammunition appeared perhaps to be of a different type. But if the grouping worked out tight with the more advanced ammunition, then it would make sense to go ahead and go through the much more difficult effort it was going to appear to be to find the earlier kind of ammunition. He didn't want to go through the effort of finding the ammo. He's an expert. That's what you're supposed to do. You have the resources of the state. You can do that, right? I mean, but you didn't do it because you knew you weren't going to get the results that you wanted. If it didn't work with the more advanced, I didn't think there was any hope of getting a tight grouping on the earlier. In fact, wasn't it only when you were here on October 2nd and 3rd at the pretrial hearings when I pointed it to you that you realized that the ammunition you had bought was wrong? Oh, no. In fact, the ammunition I have is also plated. And I knew the stuff from the murder scene was not. I mean, it's obvious it's a more advanced shotgun round. But if it works, then we've got a viable. So your answer was no. Mr. Khan says, may the witness finish. And Ms. Abramson says, I'm going to object to the rest of it as non responsive. The court says the answer as stated by the witness will stand. Your next question, please. Did you ever attempt, we'll strike that, you indicated you went around to gun shows trying to buy old Fiachi ammunition. Trying to find old Fiachi number 4, yes. And why didn't you just call the LA County sheriffs who did the testing in this case and ask them if they had any? I did not, and honestly, I didn't think of it. But you knew the sheriff's department had done the ballistics work in this case, didn't you? I knew they had done some ballistics work in the case, yes, from reading the trial testimony. Are you familiar with the fact that law enforcement crime laboratories usually stockpile ammunition from every manufacturer periodically over time to make sure they always have a supply? Did you know that? If that's a practice of every criminal lab, I'm unaware of that. I have no basis to disagree. I'm asking about law enforcement laboratories. Do you know what they do? Objection irrelevant. The court says, in regard to this particular subject of whether they stockpile ammunition, Ms. Abramson says, yes, Your Honor, overruled. The witness says, I'm aware that the FBI lab does it in Washington, D.C., but I can't say for local communities. So you could have called, or, well, not like the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. is going to hand it over, but you had an idea that that is somewhat of protocol for law enforcement, so whatever. She says, and you didn't inquire, correct? No, I didn't inquire. Now, it's true, is it not, Dr. McCarthy, that you never spoke to Dr. Irwin Golden whatsoever before you wrote your report, right? I don't believe I spoke to him before my report. That is correct. In fact, you only spoke to him about a week or two before the October 2nd hearings. Something like that, yes. And you certainly never spoke to Dr. Robert Lawrence before you wrote your report, correct? Correct. In fact, you didn't even know who Dr. Robert Lawrence was until a few weeks ago. Personally, I did not know. So you never heard of him. That's correct. And was it you who was directed at failure analysis to search to find a pathologist who could support your conclusions? Objection assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained. Are you aware that failure analysis was contacting various people trying to find a pathologist who might sign on to some of your theories? Objection assumes facts not in evidence and argumentative. Rephrase the question. Was failure analysis trying to find a pathologist who would sign on to some of your theories? We were certainly not trying to find a pathologist to sign on to a theory. We were asked by the district attorney's office to find a pathologist to handle the medical questions that would come up that clearly I'm not qualified to address. Well, that didn't stop you, however, from writing a report laden with medical opinions before you ever spoke to a pathologist, did it? No, we were. Thank you. You've answered the question. Your Honor, may the witness finish his answer? The court says you may. It's a yes or no question. Witness says we were comfortable with the biomechanical correctness of the testimony. We didn't, to us, think of it as a medical opinion. Now I now realize that the term you guys use. So this is wrong that that the court told him that he could finish his answer because it was really a yes or no question, and if he answered yes or no, that's answering the question, and if Mr. Khan wanted to bring it up on his redirect, then that's what he should do, not have the court should not have the witness continue his question, but anyways, or continue his answer. Ms. Amerson says, yeah, we use things like antemortem and postmortem. Do you disagree with those medical opinions? Mr. Khan says, objection, argumentative. How's that argumentative? She's asking, do you disagree with the opinions? Do you disagree that terms like antemortem and postmortem are medical terms? Objection, irrelevant, overruled. Certainly, they can be medical opinions. Can you answer yes or no? I guess. I mean, I use those terms in car crashes all the time, but not expressing them as medical opinion. It was clear at some point in this person, it was clear at some time in this person is dead, and believe you me, they're dead. It's not a medical opinion, they're in multiple pieces. What? What do you think the jury is thinking of this dude? That was a really bizarre answer. We're not dealing with people in multiple pieces. We're dealing with antemortem and postmortem wounds, correct? Objection, argumentative. As phrased, it is argumentative. No, it's not. Aren't we dealing here with the designation of various wounds as antemortem and postmortem? Yes. And didn't you offer opinions in your report as to certain wounds as being antemortem that were in direct contravention to the LA County coroner's decision? Yes or no? One wound, yes. And you did do that without consulting any forensic pathologist or other medical doctor of any kind, correct? Oh, correct. And you've testified here that you're not qualified to give medical opinions, correct? That's correct. I'm not a doctor. And the judge has so ruled, and you know that, don't you? Objection, argumentative. Sustained. How? She's asking, you know this, right? Like, maybe saying don't you. They don't like that. Ms. Abramson says, you also rendered an opinion in that report concerning that what were entry wounds and what were exit wounds that were in contravention to Dr. Golden's reports, correct? Again, one. So his opinions disagree with some of the doctor's opinions, and he is obviously not a medical doctor, so she's pointing that out. And that's true as to one. Is that what you're saying? At least one, yes. And again, those opinions of yours as to what were entry and exit wounds were made without consulting any medical person at all, correct? Correct. I mean, no, doctor. That is correct. Did you consult a nurse? A nurse assisted Mr. Grewal in some of the autopsy analysis, but no, doctor. Who was the nurse? I'm sorry, I didn't. Hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't write her name down. Is she the nurse at failure analysis that runs the sick bay? Yes, does work on our medical records. Uh huh. Did you ever hear of a forensic pathology nurse? Have I? No. There is no such thing, is there? There could very well be, I just don't know. And the nurse had to help Mr. Grewal do what? Now you're going to have to. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Just been reading a while. My tongue's getting tired. Hold on. Okay, let's try that again. Now, you're going to have to ask Mr. Grewal, but I know he got some assistance primarily on the records, just going through the volume and plotting the various information on the body. You mean trying to understand the medical terms like antecubital fossa or popliteal fossa, things like that? Mr. Grewal has a good grasp of all that. He graduated from his master's program last year, is that right? 94 is last year? I don't recollect the precise date. Well, you asked him before, and he shook his head yes in the audience. Should we ask him again? He's right here. Yes, 94, he says. Right. Been out of school a year. I'm sorry? He's been out of school a year, right? Since his master's, he's been with us several years. When did he get his bachelor's degree? Mr. Grewal says 1990. The witness says 90. Ms. Abramson says, so he's 5 years from a bachelor's degree and 1 year from a master's degree. He is. Do you hold Mr. Grewal out to be an expert comparable with Dr. Golden? No, Dr. Golden is a medical doctor. Do you know how long he's been the county coroner? I do not. Do you know how long his residency was in forensic pathology? I do not. What about Dr. Fackler? Do you hold yourself or Mr. Grewal to be the equal of Dr. Martin Fackler on wound ballistics? No. Do you know how long he was a surgeon and medical doctor and researcher? It would have to be something like 30 years. Yes. Do you know that he was the director of the Letterman Institute on Wound Ballistics? Objection. This is irrelevant. Overruled. Yes. Miss Abramson says, and do you know he disagrees with you, Dr. McCarthy, about the direction of the wounds where you disagree with Dr. Golden, don't you? I have not yet. I've heard you represent that. I've seen a report from Dr. Fack. I haven't seen a report from Dr. Fackler, but I would be most interested in his sequence reconstruction. I will send you his testimony and you can learn from it. Objection. Argumentative motion to strike. That was hilarious. However, it was very improper. Court says the remark of counsel is stricken and the jury is admonished to disregard the side remarks of counsel. Ms. Abramson says, now, when, if ever, did you receive the report of Mr. Linhart? Oh, the last couple of months is my best recollection. After you wrote your report? I think so, yes. And when did you receive the autopsy photographs taken by the coroner's office? After my meeting with Dr. Golden. And your meeting with Dr. Golden was after you wrote your report? Yes. And up until that time, did you ever know there was a second set of photographs of the autopsy? Yes, I did. But you didn't have them, correct? I did not. And you didn't look at them before you wrote your report? Correct. And before you had your meeting with Dr. Golden, were you aware that the prosecutors had a meeting with Dr. Golden? Objection calls for hearsay, speculation. Court says sustained. Were you told by either Dr. Khan or Miss Nahara that they had met with Dr. Golden? Objection calls for hearsay, speculation. Court says it does call for hearsay. Objection sustained. Ms. Abramson says, were you told by Mr. Khan or Ms. Nahara that Dr. Golden was issuing a supplemental report at any time? Objection calls for Ms. Abramson says, I'm not offering for the truth. Mr. Khan says, irrelevant. The court says, it's irrelevant then. Okay. It drives me insane. This court loves to side with the prosecution. He's done some right calls on the defense's side, but there have been some really dumb calls on. He's very prosecution leaning. Ms. Abramson says, at the time of the October 2nd pretrial hearing, isn't it true, Dr. McCarthy, you still hadn't read Dr. Golden's 1995 supplement? That is correct. So after you received the autopsy photographs, did you then scan them into your computer? Yes, onto computer disk. So you're not storing them in a hard drive, you're storing them on a computer disk, a photo disk. When I scan them, I do, but subsequent, easier, and faster to load versions like you saw today are loaded onto a hard disk. And the photographs that are contained in your computer now that you showed us as part of your presentation, have they been sharpened by using Adobe Photoshop? No. Is it your testimony that they are exactly the image of the negative, unenhanced in any way? Just the reverse. They're degraded. They are much smaller than the original computer or compact disc image. Has anything been done to change the clarity, the sharpness, the contrast on those photographs? No, they are a reduced sized version of the original scan image. Now, in addition to putting in the furniture dimensions from the Beverly Hills Police Department measurements, I believe you said you also affixed a size or determined a size for the dummies. Is that right? A height only. Height? Height only. And what height did you use for Mr. Menendez? That listed in the autopsy, and that is, my recollection is 6'1", but I'll check that for you. 6'3" inches? Yes. So that's how it's listed in the autopsy report. That's what I was checking for. Okay. Was height important for your reconstruction, as you call it? It had some relevance. I'm not sure important is the right word. How is height not important? But it's the only dimension from real people that you put in, isn't it? That's correct. I didn't attempt to scale the anthropomorphy of the figures to Jose and Mary. And where did you get the height for Mrs. Menendez? Again, from the autopsy report, she's what? 5'2"? No, she isn't. But that's what's in the autopsy report. I used the value of the autopsy report. So if I were to tell you that the autopsy report says 5'2" and the coroner's investigator who went to the scene and measured the body said 5'8", objection calls for hearsay, overruled. Would that be of significance to you? Not to my reconstruction. Seriously? That's a big difference in inches. And that doesn't matter to you? That's, that's a lot of torso. Sitting or standing, that's a lot, 6 inches. Whew, he says, not to my reconstruction, but 6 inches of height is 6 inches of height. Well, did you bother putting in height if it isn't important? Or why did you bother putting in height if it isn't important? The two figures come as 15th percentile of the disc I would have left. Meaning 15th percentile of the population, sort of your middle? Exactly. So neither you nor me, is that right? In theory, anyone. Well, they come as the 15th percentile. We could have left them there. It just was too convenient to pull the numbers out of the autopsy report and put them into the reconstruction. Well, isn't it sort of important here what their relative heights are, particularly for shot one, as you call it? Shot one would be the relevant consideration, and obviously, if her height varies by 6 inches and we pick up 3 inches plus or minus in her torso, that would change the relationship, but a small amount. I mean, I don't represent these figures to the level of precision for you. Well, I don't want to trick you, Dr. McCarthy. The coroner's investigator's report is wrong, too. I have a copy of her driver's license. Mr. Khan says, again, assumes facts not in evidence as to who's right and who's wrong. Counsel is not a witness. The court says it's just for the purpose of asking whether or not that would change his opinion, is all. Ms. Abramson says her driver's license indicates her height as 5'5". Again, calling for hearsay, motion to strike. The court says the driver's license is clearly hearsay, as is the coroner's report. It's just what somebody has written down on a piece of paper. It's not offered for the truth. Mr. Abramson says, do you have any idea what height she is right now? Let me ask you this. He says, I guess nothing you've told me so far causes me to doubt the 5'2", but whatever her height was, her height was. Again, with those answers, it makes him look bad. Well, I'm not asking you to doubt the 5'2". That's not my question. Do you know how tall she was? I did not independently measure her height. I've only relied on the medical document that I've been provided. Well, that's a problem because there's multiple documents that say multiple things about her height. And your computer, which has this ability to scan things and get the height, you didn't scan her body to find out, did you? No, and I can do that. Ms. Abramson says, well, perhaps you'll do that by tomorrow. Your Honor, it is 4:30. The court says, okay, we'll recess until tomorrow at 8:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. Don't permit yourselves to be exposed to anything about the case outside the courtroom. We'll resume tomorrow at 8:30. And that's that. So that is the end of November 14th. And we will continue. I think he's still in the stand for like 2 or 3 more days. So we got a lot more of him. But it appears direct or cross examination by Erik isn't even done yet. So this was just a break to end for the day. So we shall see what comes out next. I think she's doing a really good job grilling him. It took a while to get there, and that's the problem, because she has to establish all of the foundational questions to get to certain things, and he's also being evasive and not answering things and going on in these like tangents about things that she didn't even ask. So it's kind of difficult for Leslie Abramson to get the answers she needs in a timely fashion. So that it probably explains why he's on the stand for several days. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday with November 15th, continuing on with Dr. McCarthy's testimony. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit the like button. Take care. Bye now.